now. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for coming, and I'm extremely glad to tell you that we have today Matias. Matias, as you know, it's our former head of culture. He was working with us, I don't know, a couple of years, almost 3 years.
Three or four, yes.
3 or 4. Sorry, my time is difficult to track these days. I'm getting old, so I don't have a good representation anymore. Anyway, what we would like today is to talk with Matias about development, open source, communities, of course, impact of AI on development, and many other topics. And well, the first thing, because I don't think everyone on this call has met with you before. Could you introduce yourself, Matias, so we have a general picture of who you are and everybody can understand who you are for us?
Yeah. So yeah, very glad to be here back. It feels a little bit strange seeing so many familiar faces and smiles. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here. And yeah, I'm Matias Capeletto, also known as Patak online, if you follow in some of the social networks that are not burning yet. And yeah, I'm a Bitcore team member and also member of some other open source projects. And currently I'm working full time for StackBlitz. They hired me to focus on Vite and the ecosystem. So yeah, that has allowed me to really spend a lot of energy on like working with the Vite ecosystem and like maintaining Vite, like having time to help like develop the team there, that we can discuss a little bit how we work together with like Vite. Vite is an effort of like tons of people right now. So yeah, that would be like a short introduction right now.
Thank you. And actually starting from the very beginning, so you started quite a while ago. I will not say the number of years because I'm very respectful now. Quite a while ago on development, and you didn't even start with web development. How did those first steps begun? Why did you start doing software development?
Yeah, when I was very young. So I always liked computers and like programming and doing games, for example. But when I started university, I decided to study electronic engineer. Like I studied there in UBA in Buenos Aires. And I discovered that like it's nice, but I like it more programming. Like I like it the mathematic parts and processing. So I ended up like focusing on that. And at one point I got the opportunity to work on like a signal processing company. And from there, like for a year, and from there, I got a Google Summer of Code. That is a very interesting program that Google does, where they hire students to work 3 months full-time on open source. So there you propose to do like something for an open source library. For example, I wanted to do a library in C++ for the Boost C++ library. And that got accepted. So I got 3 months to work on open source, and then another 3 months that I stayed because I wanted to finish the project and properly get it up, like merge it. So that was extremely interesting because it introduced me and also a lot of other students to open source. I think it's a wonderful program. And from there on, like one of the people that I met in that program ended up being my boss for like a long time. And we started working afterwards together in a company called Stolz. And this was really interesting because that was my initial approach to JavaScript and like, the web in general. Our main task there for a long time was grabbing a C# engine that was to doing graphics and like porting that to the web. And as we were doing that, like, I don't know, now you can rotate on the web, and then you don't have to communicate with the server. And there was like a lot of improvement in doing that. And it was like as Iago said about the age, like this was the times of Internet Explorer 6. Like the browsers that we were targeting didn't support SVG or Canvas, just to give you an idea of like what the
Context,
kind of we were
Good
trying to
times.
make a graphic editor without Canvas or SVG, so like it was kind of a little bit wild, but it was
No, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, but it was like really interesting also to see it evolve, because during the years we were able to do more and more. Once we had Canvas, once we like SVC was well supported, so like we saw all that evolution. And then like at one point, like this was the first time we worked together with Leniolabs, and this was through like Leniolabs started to work doing the web development for stalls. So that was like really interesting. And then at one point, like I want to do other things. And at one point that ended up me like arriving back to Leniolabs, because Leniolabs in that particular point, it was around, I think, 40 people, maybe it was like 30 people, and you were just starting to ramp up.
I didn't have this white hair.
Yes, but yeah, so like the idea was that to came in to like work with the people that were joining to see how we can like improve like the quality of development, like learn together, like and that ended up like working well, and like I ended up staying for a long time. It was really fun because this was a time like from what like the company growth, I think 4 times during that period, and there was a lot of challenges in that growth, in how to maintain like a good culture, like in how to make a collaborative environment. And so that was extremely interesting. And one of the things that we did during that time was I really believe that if you want to improve as a developer, one of the best ways is to do open source. So so we started like a group to do open source together, to try to check repositories. Like once a week we were like getting together and reviewing a repository and trying to see how to lose the fear to actually clone it and try to triage issues and do PRs. And so like a lot of people did their first PRs there, and I think you learn a lot by reading the code bases.
Correct.
Soft skills, for example, interacting with the maintainers. So that was like working great, but at the same time, that and another project that we had, like Leniolabs always had these kind of open source tools, and so we open source it together with Agus and other folks like Mariana also. So we open source it layouted. That is like this CSS grid generator. And in the process of doing that, we were using the latest Vue, like experimental stuff. And
correct, yeah.
The latest Vite, at that point, it was like Vite 2, like beta before like the release. This was like 2.5 years ago. And there were tons of opportunities to participate and get involved in that project, because there was a lot of things that were experimental and like breaking even. So like you discovered the bugs and you could report them. And that led me to get involved again, like that I haven't done open source like for real for a long time. And yeah, like one thing led to another. And that started this 2 years ago stage where like I got involved in several projects at the beginning, but like the one that I ended up like more focusing was Vite. And that like was just at that time when the community was starting to form. So like I proposed it to create the Discord for Vite that wasn't created, and Evan Gill, that is the the creator of Vuejs and also the creator of Vite. So like he created the Discord, like made us admins like myself, Anthony Fu, and others maintainers. And from there, like we also started like to talk with everybody that was coming and get people involved. And there were tons of like people doing plugins or like frameworks starting to adopt Vite. So like there was a lot of movement. And in that particular movement, I already decided that I wanted to focus on that. And I kind of decided, okay, if I have to spend some time like for myself, like I will just do that for 1 year or something like that. Because I saw a very interesting opportunity. We were
and
talking.
Something you love.
Yeah. And we were talking. It was like kind of hard also because really I love it what I was doing at that time on Leniolabs. Like there were like a lot of challenges. Like we really were working well together, but at the same time, like this was like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like we were talking with the maintainers of like every framework out there. Like it was just amazing. So I decided to move forward with that, and at the same time, Stagblitz appear in the picture. Like Eric Simmons is the CEO of Stagblitz, and like he approached me because they had the need for something like Vite. So like just what Stagblitz does is they developed this technology called web containers. Yep. And web containers allows you to run Node.js in the browser. Yep. So with this technology, then they can give you like an IDE online. Yep. where you can develop like without a server. That is how normally this kind of IDE works. Mm-hmm. Like normally you develop, but there is like the terminal when you send a command, like it's sending it to the server and back. And this is like directly getting Node in your browser and like totally local. So like open source project, for example, can adopt it without problem. And they needed a tool like Vite because it was very fast to boot. Like they really care about like this
performance.
Yes, performance. But at the same time, like Webpack was really slow. So like they were fast, and then Webpack was like trading. So
as you can see, team with Matias, we don't need to do a talk. Matias can do a talk by himself. I'm here now. Sorry, I interrupted you, Matias. I love what you're saying. So please, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah. So at the end, like it was kind of in the crucial path for them that Vite will succeed because they needed that tool. So yeah, they hired me because that was kind of, there was a lot of alignment. Later on, like we can discuss also because like we discover a lot more, even more alignment because we did ViteConf, that is like an online conference. We are going to do it again this year, nice. Like with a lot of like big names from the open source world. So that will work it very well for like Stagblitz was the one organizing, and then it was about the Vite ecosystem. So like that was very nice. And yeah, like that led us to this moment that is kind of weird because like when like 2 years ago when we started and we created that Discord, this was like Vite was about, I think, like 100,000 downloads per day, like weekly downloads in NPM. I think that one thing that we should say is what is Vite, maybe after all this, just in case someone that doesn't know it. But so like Vite is a web build tool, like to build your applications like it will be Webpack, you know, like the difference is that Vite
it's an alternative to Webpack, but with more performance, with modern tools, more additional configurations, the modern version in a simple way.
Yeah. And it's like very different, like in build time and in dev. Like in dev, you have like very, very fast HTML, like, yeah. So the idea is that like from that initial like 100K downloads per week, now we are about, I think, like almost 6 million weekly downloads. And that means that it is around like 25% of Webpack at this point.
That's so beautiful to hear.
That is a lot of downloads.
Yeah.
and yeah, so it has been like really interesting to see how everything evolved.
And actually that triggers me because of the three main topics we would like to get in deep during this conversation that you already mentioned all of them. But one is, of course, open source. The other one, of course, is community. And the third one is JavaScript, software development, and all that is happening right now around it. So my first question is about communities. And you have built communities, most of them around software development, about, in this case, Vite, in Leniolabs, in maybe even, I know that you have built other communities not even around development. How do you tackle the challenge, the day one, the day zero, even not even the day one, the day -1? Okay, I want to be part of a community. How can I start contributing? How can I start even the community? How do, from your experience, what are the first steps to build it?
Yeah, I think like something that is important is that the communities work very well when it is not like one person, the one that puts all the energy and kind of like becomes the center of everything. And then at one point that person like will go to do something else, and then everything will like crack and fall. So this, like, what I think when you try to create a healthy community, it is very important that you already take it from the beginning, in the sense of trying to like promote other people and trying to like foster participation,
the collaboration, yeah,
and by others, and yeah, and try to like remove yourself from the middle, you know, like if you can create connections between people and they
absolutely.
can then discuss without you, that is success, you know, like it's like not being needed for something to run, that is like the measurement of success in this kind of things. And that implies like trying to think also, even like things that are, you, for example, when something is forming and you have a lot of knowledge about that, it's very easy to fall into, okay, I will answer. Yeah, I will answer everything like as quickly as possible because I want to help others move faster. And that has the problem that you generate in that star, you know, like, because you don't let other people get involved and help between themselves. So like it's very important to say like, I will not answer, like at least I will wait.
I will stay back. I will stay back and I will let them interact.
Yeah, that's the work, you know, like I will not work. But that is important. That is important.
Beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, that is important work, because at the end of the day, like it's just waiting a little bit, because if in 10 minutes nobody answer, okay, like you can unblock that person, you know, like,
because that triggers, and okay, but at the same time you're dealing with the fear, the resistance of the team members of the community, and it happens on one way at the very beginning of the community when it's a small community, and it's different from the large community, because at the very beginning is, okay, this doesn't have traction, how do you generate traction? But then the community becomes bigger and wider, and the people is, hey, there's too many people here. I'm afraid of putting my voice out there. What if I look like I'm stupid, or I say something incorrect, or how do you tackle those kind of challenges? Because at the end, community is as strong as all the team members that are participating. And what we're talking here is how we can foster that participation at the very beginning and in a late stage community status, when the new team members have that resistance to participate. I don't know if I was clear.
Yeah. So like at the beginning, I think it is easier, at least if you see it like in open source, or even like in a company, because you, like when you are only 20 people, you know each other, you know, like and then it's totally different to having 200 people. That it's hard to, with 20 people, for example, you can talk with everyone in a week.
Yep.
But with 200, if you want to talk with everyone in a week, I don't think you have enough hours. It's like 1 minute, hello, okay, bye. Like, and so, but in an open source community at the beginning is easier because you get a lot of people that are the early adopters that are extremely capable, like very driven. They really want to do and build things with your library, for example, and working with when everyone is like that, like they're generating connections is very easy. You have to like really just create a good environment and like things work. Even we saw in vitejs and then in Elk, that is a Mastodon client.
Yep.
So we created that 2 communities with 2 months in private. And we were only inviting people from outside when we saw they were interested. And we invited like 100 people maybe in both cases. And that thing being private helped it a lot because there was this feeling of like belonging and like
the club.
I don't know. Yeah, a club. Exactly. That's a good word. Later on, when the communities get a lot bigger, I think it's very important if you did a good job and the community actually did a very good job on creating all that connections, then that initial group will be able to tackle like more people joining. But it's hard. Like it's normal. I think, for example, in open source, you need to like if the community you are thinking more in the Discord, for example, of the community, you need to kind of like try really hard to say like, okay, if you have a question, go to the help channel, because if not, everything becomes new users asking new questions. And all the interesting things about like people building stuff like gets relegated into like it's hard for that to get afloat. So you have to try to generate the spaces, and I think it's hard. Like we saw today that it is like 20K people in members in the Discord community of it, and at that stage is already kind of hard. Like there are like people that came and say like, oh, nobody answers, and it's like, yeah, you have like new users. There is like a million new users every month and a half, and it's hard to get more people involved on the answering side. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And how do you measure the and let me put it in a different way. For me, Linux is a community. I think about us as a community, and I am a team member of this community. And for me, if I see that there is a lot of communication on the public channels, that means that we have a healthy community. And if there is not a lot of communication on the public channels, that means that we're going backwards on our goals. And a company at the end is a group of people, and the idea is to generate opportunities for ones for the others, grow together, all those kind of things. So how do you measure? Did you ever find a way to measure the well-being, the current status of a community, or you go by heart and just being there every day is how you see it? Have you ever worked on something like this?
Like in open source, there are like these kind of like polls and like things that the people organize, so they are measuring like sentiment of like the wide community in the sense of like liking the tool, or like if you adopt it, are you going to use it again? Like they ask all these questions, and you can get some metrics about that, but it's very hard as usual, no, like to try to put a number on something that is at the end like a feeling in a lot of cases. But sometimes, for example, these kind of metrics affects a lot more negatively to projects that have been for a long time. So Vite is really new. And again, all the people using it at the beginning are the people that want to use it. And later on, when you have like a project like maybe Vue, React, or like that are for a long time, you get a lot of people that are using it because they have to use it. So like the answers between that two groups are different. What you say also, I think, is important in, for example, if you want to see how Slack is working, like having, I think, public spaces where people help each other, I think that is a measurement of like a healthy place. And
they can feel comfortable saying something that maybe it's completely incorrect, and there is no problem, there is no issue at all, and having no fear and being completely fine with saying whatever they want to say.
Yeah, that is extremely important. And also like try to talk to people if they don't act like that.
Yep.
So like moderating in the sense of like, hey, look, don't say that you are stupid. That is not how we work here, or like how we build these things together. Like, and you have normally you have a code of conduct, and you have like rules that you can put.
Correct.
And you can explicitly say like in this community, like every question is okay. You know, like
Absolutely.
feel safe to speak your mind, and like we know that there are people that are just beginning. So like we were there ourselves.
Perfect. Jumping to open source. We're seeing that there is, or at least in JavaScript world, that is the one we have closer, open source. You have the open source that is fostered by companies, and open source that is, let's say, bottom up and top down by companies and by groups, if you will. Why do you think there is a good or bad approach? What are the pros and cons of each of them? And the examples that we are talking here is very Vue versus React. One fostered by Facebook, the other one fostered by the community, the open source community. And it even has a mirror now in AI, in all that's happening with LLMs, etc., where you have OpenAI and you have open source with Llama, Alpaca, etc. What are the pros and cons of each of those scenarios, I would call it, for the sake of not a better name? Did you ever think about this? Do you ever think about this?
Yeah. Like it is a bit hard to know what is best, because in the middle of like I will say like the best in an idealistic world will be that you don't need to think about money, and then like everybody that is like doing React is there because they really want to be there, and there is like all of them can make a life, and then like all is fluid. But that breaks because everybody needs to make a living, and funding in open source is extremely hard. So like if you want only to fund yourself with donation, for example, from individuals, like it's really, really hard, except like if you are like one of the top stars to get there. It is a little bit easier to get there, like if you're lucky to count with someone like Staglitz, or like Netlify also hire like Ryan Carniato to work on Solid, or there are like different companies. Vercel also hired like a lot of people to work on open source, and there's a lot of companies that hire maintainers to do their job because of like this alignment. But so I think there is no like good answer, let's say. I am happy that like there are some companies that have open source team like in place, like I don't know, like React, let's say, when it was like the time of Facebook, and now they're slowly moving to Vercel too. And that also like works well for some kind of projects, you know, like they can focus and do more in a kind of like if you have full-time pay members like of your team, then you can plan in a very different way that if you can
more
not,
predictability.
Yes, like normally, like for general open source contributors that are not full time in that job, like you cannot never say to someone like do that, you know, like it's
we
never
need
like
this
that.
for the next month. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, instead of that is a lot more about like, okay, these are all the things that will be really nice to do.
Pick and choose.
If anybody will want like that is something to do, you know, like and you there it is a lot more about, okay, like if there is some people that are driven and I will like to do that, okay, enabling them to do it.
But for example, in your case, you at some point you decide to work in Vue or Vite and not in, for example, in React. And I know you have done contributions to React, but why that? How that decision was made? What was the reasoning behind?
Yeah, I did not do a contribution of React chassis
I thought
for the record, but yeah, like I also work it with React, but it was kind of like affinity. I don't think there is like all the modern frameworks are really good, and like I had a lot of affinity, especially when Vue did their new like ref, how it works, like the new transforms. Like I was really driven to that. So
it was a technical decision. You like the way they
yeah,
were doing
I like
the
it.
technical.
I felt more comfortably with Vue, and also to be honest, like if you want to contribute to Vue, the barrier is a lot lower than contributing to React. Like it's a lot easier to, if you want like the React ecosystem, contributing to libraries in React, that is easier. But like contributing to React core, like it's like
it's a more closest place.
Yeah. Like there is a lot of development that is like inside, let's say, and it's a lot difficult to enter. It can be done. Like most of the React contribute like team members, let's say, that are hired, they came from like having contributed to React before. So like it can be done, but the barrier is higher to enter when the project is like from a company.
Perfect. And in terms of code quality, code standards, in a community, again, Vue, whatever, any community you have worked with, how much is the effort of having a clear rule set that allows the project to thrive at a good pace, but at the same time, with a high code quality, because you cannot allow yourself to have messy code in something that is specifically oriented to performance?
Yeah. I think like the answer in open source is like tooling right now. Like if you have like good tooling in your project that allows people to collaborate, for example, like linters, using something like Preacher to format code. So like there is no discussion about like what is the format.
Absolutely.
Like you only discuss about the code. Using something like TypeScript or like code annotations, like so you can like that you can refactor and like all the types will be right, and that like stops a whole lot of issues. Having a good test suite is extremely important, because then you can try in CI directly the PR with all the, I don't know, like we try, I think, in like 7 or 8 different platforms, like all the version of Node that we support, Mac, Windows, Linux, and so we know if that change is bringing something or not. So that is extremely important. And we went one step further with Vite, and now is like that thing that we did is starting to be adopted by a lot of other projects in open source. Is that one thing that was really scary for us is that as users are starting to grow, like we had to press the release button at one point, and even if our CI is passing, is your own test, like you don't know if you're going to break others or not. So what we did is we have another like open source project that is called Vite Ecosystem CI. And that project allowed us to run, like at this point, I think there are like 25 different, like the main project using Vite. So SvelteKit, like Nux, nice. I don't know, VitePress, like all the big names that are using Vite. We can run their CIs, all the CIs, like every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we get reports to Discord. And if we have a PR that we say like, I don't know if this could produce some breaking change, we can run against that PR even before merging. So when we see that our CI is green and the CI of the like 25 main project is green, like that's a very big net. Yeah. So it's that allow us to like work a lot easier, let's say, and be more aggressive in what we merge. Then there is a lot of like a human component to all this, that is like having a very good team and contributors and like very active people that are going to like review the PRs. So like it doesn't depend on only like one pair of eyes, but like there are several people. In the Vite team, for example, we merge if we have like 2 approvals from people in the team. And
perfect.
So, and yeah, so like that is important.
How much of the importance do you give to the developer, and how much importance do you give to the reviewer of the developer, the reviewers in this case? Because probably in your case, the reviewers are even more important than the developers per se. Double quotes here. What do you think about how do you make the reviewers have a similar point of view? Work, for example, there is a lot of compromise in development. What's better, the readability of performance of a code? That's a kind of question that is impossible to answer because of 1 gazillion things. But in general, you have a concept that you want to tackle. How do you do this kind of? How do you align the reviewers, for example?
Yeah, in the case of Vite, for example, like the reviewers are mainly like the team plus some extended group of contributors that also help us. So how we do it is that first we talk a lot in the review process, like between ourselves in the issue, in the PRs themselves, and also we also have like metrics, performance metrics that we can run against that, like to see some with real numbers.
Yep.
But there is always trade-off, and when it is not like a clear fix, and when it is a new feature or there is a trade-off to discuss, we discuss it. Like we have the special channels for this to discuss, and every 2 weeks all the team gets together and they review the PRs and try to reach a consensus, like in a call like this. What we try to do is to try to get all the trade-off already kind of like to it.
Aligned, yeah.
So yeah, so we can get to that meeting and say like, okay, we have these 2 options. Like what will we think is best? So we kind of try that everybody is there and try to merge as many PR or new features as possible.
And a very weird question, but would you allow an AI review in a code, or would you allow an AI writing code for Vite? What are your thoughts around this?
Yes, no.
No.
the
hard no.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, I think AI is like, it has, as we saw, everybody, like, it has evolved a lot and is very useful. Like, you have GitHub Copilot, and except for things like path, what it keeps recommending, like users like John that doesn't exist in my file system, and it could maybe use a bit more information, or like types, for example. That is really interesting because like you have TypeScript and the GitHub Copilot is like recommending you to do something that will not compile, and it could check that, but yep. that will get better. And I think that already GitHub Copilot is really, really interesting. But at the same time, I am very afraid of like the abuse that could be led by these tools. For example, it's very cheap to do a review of something if you just like feed the PR and say like, review this to me. We receive already some comments that you read them, and some of them have and say like generated by this tool at the end, and some of them are like directly some comment that you read and you say like, this was not written by a human.
This
like,
was not by a
it's just like some like general bland thing that like you kind of like still can check it, you know. And it is not useful for us to receive something like that, because if we want it, we can do it. Like we have the same tools. Like it is not useful that you say, I will generate a review by AI to other people. And if you want to do that, normally it is because you want to fake engagement. So like it's a very easy way to say, I'm involved in open source, hire me. And then your involvement is that you share, you are doing this automatically. That the scary part is that now we know about that. And the scary part is in like 3, 4, 5 years is if it is like really, really good, and you start to not know if all the like things are like just AI talking to reviewing each other, that will kind of be weird.
But in this kind of comments, at some point, let's pretend that we can get an AI that can resolve a bug that you have in place, and it this AI proves that it's doing a good job. Why don't consider this AI as a new contributor, as someone who is valuable for the community? For you, it's a hard no, and I don't want something like that in my project because I don't know where that path is going to take me. Or are you more like open, we will see, and right now it's a no, but maybe later it's a yes?
No, let's say that the kind of review that I saw so far are, again, very kind of generic and blunt, and explaining the code in a way that you look at the code and yes, I know, I don't need to read that. You kind of like, I don't know, like it's kind of like reading out loud, you know, like the code, and then hallucinating, like, you know, like, because it is kind of like, and this is good because blah, and it's like, how, like, where is your all the context and all the history of the project that you know? Like, again, that will get better, but if at one point, like, they are kind of like penetration testing, like driven by AI, and like that is not easy, let's say, for me to do as maintainer, and some other company will use tools to aid them in doing that, that's great. But at the same time, I hope.
So you're not resisting. It's not that you have something de facto against it. It's, right now, you don't think it's useful.
I think it is useful. I'm using it. I am using GitHub Copilot, like other people in the team are using it.
It's not that we cannot consider AI as a contributor at this point of the state of the technology. Yeah,
and like I hope that it is not going to be directly a contributor, but is kind of going to be a tool that a contributor will use to like be better, let's say, at his job. Kind of a GitHub Copilot, but like with other kind of tools.
You said, I hope. Why do you hope? Why? Because of course, hope it's a specific word that you selected there. Why hope? And I think, or I guess, or I don't want to.
It's hard to like to imagine a world that where you have like these AI contributors like doing, I don't know, some kind of generic contribution to like everywhere. I'm afraid, let's say, of like the spam and of the of the
misinformation at some point.
But again, like it will keep getting better. So at one point we may have to have this discussion again.
One of the theories that we have is that, well, I have in this case, is that at some point, what large language models are really good is translations. So one of the things that probably is going to happen is this is going to be another abstraction on top of the programming language, and that's something that probably we're going to be able to see, because at some point you have the assembler, then you have C, then you have C++, and assembler to C is removing the control of the registers, and add C to C++ memory, C to Java, again, memory and threading, then Python, okay, forget about memory, threading, etc. Of course, I'm doing gross analysis here, but is AI like another level of the programming language, like translating the development into natural language sentences that create code? Do you think that's even possible, or not really?
Like if
it's another abstraction.
Let
me ask it in a different way. It's AI going to be a compiler, so natural language is going to be transformed into code, or do you do not think we're gonna get there?
Yeah, I think we're already like getting there. Like there are tools already where you can say, like, absolutely, build me a UI that is like this, that, and that. But I don't know if we are going to end up in a place where it is, let's say, like
the dominant actor.
Yeah, I don't know, like if like build me a vid, you know, like if you just say that and then you have like, because
of course
you need so much context and history and a lot. Also, something that is important, like a lot of what we do in vid, for example, is not related directly to like hard coding problems or or coding like itself. It's a lot more related to discussions between people and following like what other teams are doing. And like there are like hundreds of people involved, and yeah,
Community
like,
coordination.
exactly, like a lot is not about like that part. Let's say like the coding part, in a lot of cases you review the PR and they are like 2 lines, but like why are you changing that 2 lines? Like that is
And so closing the loop at some point, it's what you do in any software project. It's about the community working together, and we're closing the loop with what we started talking about. And so I will take the opportunity, and because we're running a little bit short on time and we have some questions, I saw that there is one from Nestor, another one from Jose. Jose, Nestor, do you want to do the questions yourself, or should I, Juan? How do you want to articulate this?
They can do it. Let me allow for them to unmute themselves.
And also, I would like then a minute to thank you very much, Mati, because it was such a beautiful conversation with you.
Thanks a lot.
Nestor is asking if you can read it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Nestor, please correct me if you see that I kind of misinterpreted your question, but how is source code consistency maintained in open source projects, specifically when some developers may not include unit tests?
Yeah, this is kind of like what we discussed
Yeah,
at
we
one
spoke
point.
a little bit. Yep.
That one of the important things there is that we normally are not going to merge a PR that doesn't have unit tests, and there is no problem if the PR it is kind of stalled for a while. Like the feeling in open source, there is no that much rush, let's say, as in other environments. And we will say like, okay, like this looks good, but like please add tests, and maybe that will take another week or 2 when the people have time. Or if that doesn't happen, like a maintainer will come and add the test before merging. That is like part of how we keep like the CI like healthy. And then there is a lot of internal communication to have a clear style. Like this, we discuss it like when we see that there are like different kind of options, we will know, because there have been like so many discussion in the past about how to do things.
Thank you. And the second one is by Jose. Jose, do you want to ask the question yourself, or do you want me to go with it?
Sure, I can ask.
Absolutely.
I have 2 questions. The first one is, what is the Vite roadmap, or let's say, what is going to be improved? And the other question is, what does need Vite to outperform Webpack, or maybe it's not something related with improvement, maybe it's something related with adopters.
Yeah. The first question about the Vite roadmap, we have, like, if you go to the Vite repo, there are like milestones. So like we have a milestone for the next minor and the next major usually, and like we are going to put there the PRs that we are seeing are going, the PRs or issues that we think that are for that particular thing. And the team board that we have also, that is the one that we use to discuss in the meetings, works also as like a short-term, like let's say roadmap for what we are discussing at a particular month. And then there is like some big, like a big arc is that Vite, I think is like, it is at that point where there are so many like users and projects using it that stability is a feature. So like we care a lot about giving all these projects like a stable base where they can innovate. And in that sense, like a lot of the work is in fixing edge cases, like trying to polish everything so everything works as expected. And we have like some features in mind, and then this performance is like really important. Like there are other competitors that like came into the picture, like TurboPack, AirSpack, like these are like RAS alternative in like native to Webpack, and they came like with like a very big improvement. But the way that the Vite is architecture, like even if it is in JavaScript, like the big majority, we use like some not native tools like ESBuild to like compile like TypeScript, for example, very quickly. And there is a lot of places where we can also improve performance. So for example, in 4.3, like this was the last minor that we did, like there was like a lot of work in performance, and now we are about the same as TurboPack. And yeah, that ties into like what it needs to outperform Webpack. I don't know if that is the best feature moving forward, to be honest. Like, I think the best will be if there are different tools and it is not
complement each other.
Yeah, and there is like you have like in frameworks, even if React may like took over, now there are like the other frameworks also are having a moment where they are seeing more use. And I think that is healthy, because if you have different tools with a lot of usage, like these tools have different ideas, different teams, and they create things that later on we can all adopt if it works. And
innovation.
Yes. And also there were a lot of problems, for example, in Webpack, because Webpack did things in a certain way. Then you have packages that only work it in Webpack because people only use it that. So like at the beginning of Vite Live, there was tons of like packages that were broken in Vite, and people were saying like it's broken, and it is not broken. It's just like it only worked there because we are not going to implement that thing they did that is not a standard. And like it will be bad if the same happen to Vite, and the next tool is going to say like, it's going to say like it doesn't, it's broken because in Vite works, and here no. So I don't know, like as it stands right now, it feels that there is a chance that in 2 years maybe Vite will be at the levels of Webpack, and there are some tools like AirSpack that right now they are like starting to ramp up and have some more usage. Parcel is also getting a little bit more usage, but there is right now it looks like it is very possible. I don't think it needs something more than like getting, let's say, more development and like the team staying focused in like fixing things. And yeah, I think it has the things to grow at that level right now.
Great insight. Thank you.
Sorry, I interrupted. I think we have a hand, but is Juan, you're raising the hand? Do you have a question? Because I think we're running out of. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, this is going to be fast. Related. Sorry, Mati. I'm going to talk about AI because this is what is driving my mind at this moment in my life. But I didn't know that you were playing with GitHub Copilot, so that's I want to ask on that. I know that you have been involved in teaching, right? You had, I believe you were a professor at some point in your life. I don't know if this is exact, but it's okay. I mean, you were a big influence for a lot of developers. At least you were for me. So my question is, how do you see ChatGPT and GitHub Copilot impacting on younger developers, let's say juniors or maybe semi-seniors? Do you see any change in the way that they learn? Maybe some pros and cons that you can think of on the top of your head?
I think generally it's going to be useful to, like, depending what kind of skills you are focusing on. Like if you want to like focus on hard programming, like an algorithm to I don't know, order an array, maybe that's not going to be what most people learn, because they can just say it and they will have it. But it's also like what we do with libraries. Like we already have that built.
Nobody knows the bubble short.
Yeah, not by AI, but like by other libraries, and we consume that. But yeah, I see it as as positive. It's an interesting question about like someone that is just starting, and now it has this tool that like he can talk to, and like he sees code, and not only now code, but like in the last versions, they are like coding it and running it, and if it fails, it will say, oh, oops, let me like change it, and you see all the mental process, you know, like of trying to fix. And that is amazing, like to have that companion. I think it could be used to learn a lot more quickly, and at the same time it could also be used to don't learn anything at all if you are actually at the same time you're doing that watching YouTube, you know, on the side. That is something that is also problematic at this point with all the kind of things that we have around us, shiny things always around us.
Thank you. Yeah, that
And
was.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I'm so sorry. And I didn't want to close this conversation without thanking you, Mati. Feels like you that you are like a father or a child, I don't know, visiting a home. We felt that when we're speaking with you, we are with a family member in so many ways. And really appreciate that you could give us some time. And
thanks
hope
a lot
to
for the
see
invite.
you again. And well, we will keep discussing so many things happening. I'm sure we will be checking with you to get your inputs, your vision, and incorporate to us. And thanks for illustrating us in communities, open source, AI, and development in general. Thank you very much, Mati.
Thanks a lot for the invite, and the great discussion. And thanks a lot for everybody that joined it and participated in this.
Have a great day.
Good.
Bye, guys.
Thank you,
See you all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.